Hey guys, we're going to talk about survival tips for mental health as it relates to this COVID-19 pandemic. We're going to explore some ways that we can navigate these uncharted waters and come out on the other side with limited mental and emotional damage. Now, there's undoubtedly going to be some anxiety and stress that comes with all of the uncertainty that we're facing right now. The key is going to be, how do we manage that? And how do we process that fear, the unknown, the worry, and sort of discern between worry and concern and be proactive instead of reactive? So let's explore that a little bit by looking at 4 lessons that this COVID-19 pandemic can teach us, and then shift our mindset perspective a little bit to play this in our favor. So lesson number 1 is that adaptability is going to be key. In order to work through this and come out in a good situation, we're going to have to be adaptable. And I think that that is ultimately what's going to define and separate those people who are really compromised by this and those who use this to grow. Sort of that growth mindset versus weakness mindset. Who can look at this as opportunity to mold themselves and to be innovative, and then versus those who fold under the pressure and resist the change. So the thing about adaptability is our ancestors have been relying upon or relied upon their ability to adapt for thousands of years, right? They were in constant changing environments. Comfort and routine really wasn't something that they ever had consistently. And so they were constantly having to adapt to the environment around them. We, on the other hand, tend to get very comfortable, and a lot of times, even if we don't like our routine or our job or even the day-to-day lifestyle that we have, we do become comfortable with it, and so it's predictable. And when there's change, we resist the change. We do not welcome change in our lives typically, unless it is invited through our own will. In this case, that's not what's going on. We have been forced into a lot of situations that we're not necessarily accustomed to or happy about. How you adapt to that is absolutely critical to how you will work through this. So, what is the solution when it comes to that? So, number 1, we want to embrace that change and discomfort that comes with these circumstances, okay? So, just kind of accept. And then that's not easy to do, but just work on accepting that you're going to have to make modifications, and there are going to be some things that are outside of your control that you have to just accept, and there are going to be things in your control that you have to take action toward and maybe make decisions that you really don't prefer to make. Embrace that and view this as an opportunity to really stretch yourself and grow, to push outside that comfort zone a little bit, to think outside the box and to be innovative and to grow, instead of resisting change to the point of break or frustration. We tend to resist change. We want to continue to do things the way that we have always done because we're stubborn. And so that is not the way we want to approach this. I heard Carey Nieuwhof from his podcaster in the Christian world talking about this, and I thought he had a really good point. He said, we need to quit working so hard to try and keep doing the things the way we've always been doing them, and we need to shift that mindset and say, instead of operating in the manner that we've operated for years and years, how can we take a new approach or outlook on this? So that was with church delivery. So, instead of the traditional in the sanctuary, like that's not happening in a church building. And so instead of trying to make that still happen in some way possible and just going to all efforts to do that, why don't we look at how we can be innovative and creative? So maybe if you're having to work from home, look at how maybe that can expand your business. And when we move past this current situation, maybe that's added a whole new component to your business or your lifestyle, or if you're learning to work out at home now that you can't go to a gym. That might actually be incredible, because when this is all over, maybe you've developed some great home routine, whereas before your home routine was Netflix. So adaptability and not resisting the change, but embracing that and really growing along with this process. Second lesson that we are going to learn through this pandemic is that technology is going to shine. This is a time when technology is going to come through big time for us. We are very critical of technology, oftentimes, or social media in phones, because they do take a lot of our time and energy and they tend to distract us. But honestly, that is human behavior. It's not the device. In this case, technology, social media, the internet is playing a very pivotal role in terms of it's going to keep a lot of businesses afloat. It'll help people stay financially stable. It's going to help people stay socially connected, also allow them to still work out, do yoga classes, to be tapped into all the latest news and information. Like right now, technology and that technological age with all of the connectivity we have is absolutely incredible. What a gift. If 20 years ago we were going through this, we would be in a whole different situation. And there would be, I think, maybe more anxiety. I think it would be different. I think there would be more of wanting to know what's going on and not having the access, more feeling disconnected from the outside world and not being able to engage in your normal workout classes or to connect with friends through social media. On the other hand, I think some of the social anxiety might be less 20 years ago because we do tend to have a social contagion that's going on through our sharing of things on social media. We're sharing all of our fears and concerns, and those tend to carry over into other people. So with that said, a lot of people, or some of these generations that are resisting technology, now is not the time to do that. If you want to thrive or survive at least during this pivotal and unprecedented time in our lives, you have got to embrace technology. That's going to be the solution to this one. Embrace and step back and give technology its moment in the spotlight, okay? Instead of practicing as usual with in-person encounters or being in person for all of these things, let's say, how can we use technology to take a different approach to still achieve our goals, but just in a different way? So embrace technology and use the power of what you can hold in your hands. But use it to your advantage. Don't use it to become more anxious because you're scrolling through social media and reading all the negativity. So you got to monitor yourself and have healthy boundaries with that. Third lesson that we can learn from this situation is that we as human beings are innately selfish and feel entitled. And that may seem a little blunt, and honestly, it is, but I feel like is very truthful. And, that's something in this time that we're going to have to face. This situation is revealing a lot about us as humans and our behaviors and tendencies, and some of them are not good. So I think if we want to find a positive in this, is it's shining a light on a lot of things that we maybe need to change. And we don't stop and address until we've been really stopped in our tracks by something out of our control. So here we are, and in terms of being selfish, it is really hard for us to break from routine. It's hard not to just continue to go out to the gym, to run and buy things. We see a lot of desires or wants as needs, and a lot of stores are closing. TJ Maxx and Kohl's and these department or clothing stores, they have shut their doors because right now they're not an essential need. And I think unfortunately some people might still be going to those places. Or I know people are going on vacation. We just kind of sometimes feel like I have to go on my vacation. And I think, this is a time when we have to step back and think about, okay, what is an absolute need for me? And what are all these other things that I can live without? And if I do this for my own good or for my own benefit, am I putting other people at risk? How is that serving the people around me? How is that serving the greater good? We don't often think about how our behavior serves the greater good, and now is the time to do that. We tend to look at the cost-reward ratio of things, and so we look and say, how is this going to pay out for me? And in this case, it might just mean that you don't get sick or infected, and it's kind of like, avoiding illness, it doesn't seem like a big payout until you're sick. And that's going to move us into the next one. So in order to improve upon being innately selfish and entitled and combating that sort of common nature that we have, we need to work on accepting the cost-benefit ratio during this time that may not be predictable, and it may not play in your favor in terms of you may feel like you're suffering a little bit more, making a lot of sacrifices and not receiving a lot of benefit. You need to dig deep and look hard for the benefits that you are getting. And that could be honestly something as big as not being affected. And the thing is, you won't know that. And so, your selflessness and making some sacrifices, it might actually also save you from worse trouble that you'll never know because you'll never encounter it. That's sort of just trusting the process and living by faith and thinking, I'm going to choose to do the right thing. I'm going to choose to act for the greater good. I may never know the rewards of that, even though if I act selfishly, I'll have immediate rewards. Choose to act with selfless intent and no expectation of a foreseeable payout, okay? It's not easy, but give it a try. That's going to help you overcome that selfish nature and help the greater good in this situation. Lesson number 4 is that we do not take illness seriously until we are usually directly impacted. If it's not us, then a family member, someone close to us. And that could get us into some danger in this situation too. There are well over 7 billion people now in the world. And when we think of ourselves in terms of, or in regards to 7 billion people, we feel pretty small and we feel pretty safe that our odds are pretty good. There's a lot of other people out there who could be impacted before me. Like, if you do the math, numbers are in my favor. And I think a lot of people now are looking at the data and they're thinking that they're feeling a little bit invincible. And they're thinking that they're probably good to go out and continue about their lives and not adhere to some of the regulations or recommendations that have been made. And so I caution you on that, because when enough people tend to think invincibly like that, first of all, we're thinking that, well, I'm not going to get sick. We're just kind of thinking about ourselves. We're not concerned maybe as much about what about the other people who are more vulnerable or who we could put at risk too. And so we've got to consider that as well and not think of the odds are in my favor type of thing. Like, the odds are more in our favor here if we come together by creating space and distancing ourselves. And that is totally against our human nature to do that. We are meant to be together, bonding and fellowshipping and spending time together. So this is very counterintuitive for us, but fight the urge and try to support the greater good and come together by spending time apart. But you have technology to stay connected, so that's great. So the solution in that one thing I want to mention is being more proactive. So we don't take illness seriously until we're affected. So we tend to be a reactive society instead of proactive, and until something hits us, and then we'll jump into action. We try to solve the problem all at once, and sometimes it's a little bit late. So it is better to be proactive and take steps up front and be preventative. And you may never know what you're preventing. That's the thing. Again, reward, like you can't always expect to know the reward that you're getting. 'Cause sometimes it's like absence of illness by presence of health, and it's just kind of abstract. But just trust the process. So the solution there is to drop that instant reward mindset and consider the compound interest in your decision. So a little bit like the stock market. You put your money in for retirement, and the best thing to do is usually to let it set so it can compound over time. And if you pull it out early, then you're going to probably pay some penalties, and you're not going to get the cumulative effects of being patient and setting still. Right now, we're being asked to set still and not take action, or that is essentially the action we're supposed to take. And if we go out and if we resist and go out and continue to engage in our daily lives, there's going to be that compounding effect on the number of cases and people infected, just like our retirement or stock funds will grow if we leave them alone. It's kind of the reverse here. If we don't sit still and we go out, the cases will compound. So by setting still, we want to reverse that curve or flatten the curve. So like essentially, by staying home, it's kind of like pulling some of your stocks out early, and it's going to slow down that growth. It's a little bit of a reverse thing. But anyways, so drop that instant reward mindset and consider the compound interest of your efforts to stay home and how many people that might be helping. Again, abstract unknown number. So just trust that you are doing something that's beneficial. By sitting home and not acting, it's painful, but I think that's what's important now. And so I encourage you, choose to be proactive and patient. Two things very difficult for us, but things that are going to pay off big time. Be willing to adapt and roll with the changes, grow with that process, embrace technology. Number two, fight that notion to be selfish and that feeling of entitlement. Check yourself a little bit there and work on accepting the cost-benefit ratio. Maybe you're going to give a little bit more than you'll receive, or you'll ever get back here. And then think about the compound interest of your decisions and take this seriously to be proactive and not reactive. I hope this information was helpful, guys. I'm going to continue to bring you more tips as we move along so we can try to navigate these uncharted waters together and come out on the other side as best as possible.